Aventurine build guide. Let's talk about this gambler's best Lightcones, Relics, Teamcomps, and Eidolons. Beginning with Lightcones, as a unique imaginary preservation character, he can fill a few roles. Firstly, his signature will be his general best in slot. It gives him everything he needs, but some alternatives can be Jeopard's signature if you got it off the standard banner. It's generally his second best option for a fully sustained build. If you're looking for a more DPS Lightcone, then Destiny's Threads for Woven will be very strong on him. Some last resort options can be March's Lightcone, This Is Me, the Battle Pass Lightcone, or when paired with Acheron. Trend of the Universal Market is pretty decent as it gives him defense, but also lets him apply burn, which will build stacks for Acheron. Moving on to Aventurine's best Relic set options, he wants the Pioneer set, because building him with defense should be enough sustain for your team comps, which means you want to mainly focus on his damage, and this set will be his best in slot. You can also use the follow-up attack set if you have good pieces, or any two-piece combinations of the two, or Messenger. For his planar ornaments, if you want to focus on DPS, then Inert Salsada will be his best, but if you want to focus on sustain, then you can use Penacony if paired with an imaginary DPS or Broken Keel. So Aventurine is a shielder that scales off of defense, but he can also do a decent amount of damage. So the main stats you want are defense for a sustain focus build, and crit damage for a DPS build. Speed on the boots, defense on the orb for sustain, and imaginary damage for DPS, then finally defense on the rope. The substats to aim for are speed, defense, then I guess some crit damage. The main focus should be minimum 4000 defense to max his A2 trace, then speed until your desired threshold. So team comps. As a sustainer, he can be used pretty much anywhere. He is skill point positive and doesn't really have any unique gimmick, I guess, besides his damage coming from a follow-up attack. So the first very strong comp for him could be a follow-up focused comp with Aventurine, Topaz, and then a buffer and follow-up attacker like Dr. Ratio, Jing Yuan, or Clara. Also, as I mentioned before, if you put the Lightcone trend of the Universal Market, then he becomes even more useful with Acheron, helping her build stacks. Overall, he's just a bust to sustain, so use him anywhere you want. Now, finally, Eidolons. Firstly, his E1 gives allies 20% crit damage when his skill is applied. This should have 100% uptime as you only need to skill every 3 turns, and his shield should be strong enough to last against enemies. There's also the added mechanic of his ult applying his shield with the same effect as his skill, not that useful overall. His E2, any enemy he basics, Aventurine lowers all type resistance by 12% for 3 turns. This is a very good stopping point for light spenders wanting to pull Eidolons. Aventurine should be basic attacking almost every turn, and this debuff does count towards Acheron's stacks, so it makes him a much better support for her. E4, when his follow-up attack is triggered, it increases his defense by 40%, which increases his damage, and increases amount of hits per action on his follow-up attack from 7 to 10, adding 3. Another straight-up damage increase by a decent amount, and a little sustain buff as well. Then finally E6, for every ally with his shield active, he gains 50% damage. So this Eidolon is just a straight 150% damage increase as long as you can maintain 100% uptime for his shield. Overall, Penacony continues to push the meta with these insane characters. Like, now we have sustains that do damage. I wonder where Hoyoverse will take these next characters. I'm praying Sam is completely broken.